This year's Media Excellence Awards at the O'Briens goes to Andrew Cohen. Andrew is a native of Canada who is now a CBS legal analyst and certainly very passionate about harness racing, a horse owner, and have had a long time involvement in the game. Andrew, you wrote an article last year entitled "No Holds Barred." You're a gentleman that's very concerned about the industry and the direction it's going. Tell us about the crux of that article and what you're hoping to see from that.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be back in Canada and to get this award. It's a wonderful thing. A lot of people are responsible for it. What's striking to me is I wrote it a year ago. I wrote it last February, and so many of the issues I raised in that article about the need for integrity and the need for some centrality still exist. In fact, some of the problems are actually getting worse even this past week. So we have to address these issues if we're going to have an O'Brien Award in 15 years. That's just the reality of the situation. What's encouraging to me is that a lot of people, I think, within the sport in the last year are coming around to that notion. Maybe not the idea of a commissioner. I think that's still a ways off, but the idea that we really do need drastic change, not just in integrity, but in the way that we draw people into the sport. Standardbred Canada, I think, does a much better job than the job that the folks do in the States, and Ontario in particular does a good job, but we need to make it a North American thing, and to the extent that the article raised issues and raised questions, I hope it was the right thing to do.
A number of things were touched on in that particular article. If you could pick out one main thing that you'd like to see happen in 2010, what would it be?
Well, two things. Integrity. We have to clean up the situation with Bulletproof and David Brooks and Jeffrey Brooks. It's now a mess. It's a mess in Ontario. It's a mess in the United States. That has to sort of pass, almost like a kidney stone, for us to get through, into the next thing. And the other thing is we have to begin to draw more younger people to the races, not necessarily to the tracks, but to the idea that harness racing is a very exciting sport that people want to get involved in. Unless we do those two things, and I think the first follows the second, we're still going to be in trouble. So I think the events of the past couple of days, everybody's familiar with them, I think ultimately are going to be good things because they're going to force commissioners and regulators all over North America to do what needs to be done. And I think once that mess is cleaned up, one way or another, then you could begin to build a fan base by saying, look, we are a clean sport and we don't have these issues and we really are a sport for the 21st century. More and more younger people are talking about that now this year as opposed to last year, and to that extent the piece worked.
Harness racing's been around a long, long time. There was a point in time it was the only game in town from a gambling perspective. In recent years, competition has really swallowed up harness racing. Can we survive, can we grow if we continue to do things the same way we've always done them?
No, there's absolutely no way my son who's 11 is going to be able to enjoy harness racing the way I do unless we make drastic changes, unless we bring new fans into the sport, unless we use technology to draw people in. We sort of missed the television generation. We went right from radio really to the internet. We have to be able to use new technologies to draw people in. Some of the younger people on Standardbred Canada's board, some of the younger people in Ontario and really the rest of Canada, I think, are leading by example, but there's so much more to do. And the fan base, the dwindling handle, the dwindling attendance, I think there are ways to integrate the sport with technology to allow people, say, to go to their local store, to make a bet when they bet the lotto and so forth in Canada, to make a bet when they bet the Powerball in the United States. These are things that we need to do. I don't know that we've reached that critical mass yet, but we're getting closer than we were, and that's a good thing.
I was going to ask you, that was my next question. From the powers to be that you've talked to here in Canada and the U.S., do you see enough of a will to make that kind of a substantial change?
Yeah, I see more will in 2010 in January than I did a year ago. And I'm talking to people at the highest level, both here in Canada and in the United States. There is this notion, this reality is dawning on people. The slot stuff is a little bit of trouble in the States. Obviously, Ontario has its issues. The integrity issue, the bulletproof issue is going to be huge. People are beginning to realize that it needs not just a tweak here and there, and not just necessarily new management, but really bold new ideas. Ultimately, the people who run the sport, and there's a handful of them, are going to have to take more risks. If they don't take the risks to try new things, I think the sport is dead in a generation, and I think a lot of people who have a lot of money invested in it agree with me, certainly a lot more money than I have invested in it.
You talk about bold new risks, and I think most people would agree. Is there one silver bullet Is it a combination of several small things in concert? What do you think it's going to take?
I think there's no silver bullet. I think we need new people. I think we need younger people. I think we need people who are not as conservative and tied to the old ideas. I think a lot of the people, well-meaning though they may be, have brought us to this situation. And I think when you have that sort of situation, whether it's a hockey team or a government, you need to make a change. And I think people are beginning to realize that the kind of change we need in Canada for Standard Break Canada and the whole racing operation here, and in North America, where it's in America where it's worse, is bold things, different leaders, different approaches to the same old problems. I think the solutions are there. I think the people in charge so far have been unwilling to implement them. That, I think, is beginning to change.
All right. Very thought-provoking article, Andrew, and congratulations on the win.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Andrew Cohen again taking home the award for media excellence at the 2009 O'Briens.